So Wolverine Volume 3, issue number 44, I think is going to be a very great comic for those of you who are avid Wolverine fans, but have really kind of felt disappointed by the amount of dialogue in Wolverine Volume 3, issues number 42 and 43. And the reason for this is because these comics are really kind of build-ups. These comics are really kind of setting the stage for this ultimate kind of showdown between Wolverine and Nitro. But oddly enough, the story doesn't necessarily go the way that you think it will. So what we see as the story unfolds is that Wolverine is absolutely pummeling Nitro, that he is really kind of expelling all this revenge that he's been holding on behalf of the Stamford, Connecticut residents, that he's really kind of punishing Nitro as best he can. And this is really kind of Wolverine in his element. I think that one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people have who do not read comics, specifically Wolverine comics, is that Wolverine is kind of this mindless person, that Wolverine just kind of destroys stuff, he does his own thing, with no real regard for anything that goes on around him. And to a degree that's true, depending on which Wolverine we're talking about. If we were talking about feral Wolverine, that would be very much true. But Wolverine, for the most part, in fact in the majority of the comics as we see him, while he is an anti-hero and while he really kind of walks his own path, in the end, he's really kind of a good guy. He's really kind of doing things the best way he knows how. And in one of the biggest instances when we saw him recruited into the New Avengers, Wolverine does things that a lot of other people are just not willing to do in order to achieve a necessary result. Now, as the story continues, we actually transition to Janus and the two individuals, unknown individuals that were with him, monitoring the conflict between Wolverine and Nitro. Now, one of the individuals, a woman whom we do not know, is on the phone with a third party, presumably somebody they take direction from, and they're really kind of telling us that they've established contact with Wolverine, that they have established contact with Nitro, but they don't know who Wolverine is. They don't realize that it's him. Now, they're asked by the person over the phone if Wolverine or if this individual is an enemy or a friend. Now, from their perspective, because of what's really kind of going on, they're presuming that he is an enemy because they really don't know him, and it's really kind of the safest road to take. They're instructed by the individual over the phone that their priority objective is to continue trying to capture Nitro. But if this third party, Wolverine, gets in their way, they have the authority to kill him. Now from here, we switch back to Wolverine and Nitro. And this is an extremely important part of the comic because this really kind of gives us, again, this idea that there are some major forces at work when it comes to the Civil War event. And what we really kind of see here is that Nitro is really kind of begging for his life. Of course, he asks Wolverine if Wolverine intends to kill him, and Wolverine says that of course he does, because Nitro really kind of deserves to be killed for what happened, that Nitro really kind of deserves to die. In addition, we see that Nitro really kind of begins to plead with Wolverine, that he kind of begins to beg with Wolverine. And this is really kind of interesting here because Wolverine has enough experience in terms of interrogation using some less than savory methods to know that when someone is lying, that there is a genuine kind of lie going on, that they are in fact actually lying. And so Wolverine, while he's really kind of talking to Nitro, and while Nitro is pleading with him, Wolverine's a little bit skeptical here. He's a little bit hesitant. And of course, Nitro goes as far as to say that there was somebody else that had a hand in this, somebody else that basically through Nitro was able to kill 600 people, because Nitro never really had that power before. And this is a true statement. There had never really been an instance in Marvel Comics where we had seen Nitro self-detonate on such a scale that he was able to obliterate a large portion of a town and kill 600 people at one point, even during the storylines where he was involved with Captain Marvel. And so because of the fact that Wolverine's kind of intrigued by this, at the very least, this bit of information, he allows Nitro to continue talking, and Nitro presents to him some pills, and he presents these pills as something called MGH, called mutant growth hormone, and that for normal people it's basically HGH, but for mutants it's really kind of a superpower enhancing thing, and this is the reason why Nitro was able to self-destruct on such a scale. Now initially Wolverine doesn't really care about this. He thinks that Nitro is really just kind of pointing the finger and saying that yes, while I destroyed Stamford, Connecticut, I was only able to do it because somebody somebody gave me drugs. And that's true to a degree, but Wolverine is really kind of focused on wanting to ensure that the most, the ultimate parties, those all individuals who had a hand in this, are punished for the events in Stamford, Connecticut. And he really kind of, scents out Nitro. He really kind of smells out Nitro and realizes that, people in this kind of position will say pretty much anything, and that those individuals who are facing death will say virtually anything to keep from dying. But he doesn't really smell anything indicating that Nitro's dying or Nitro's lying. He doesn't really get any kind of vibes from Nitro indicating that Nitro's not telling the truth here. And so he tells Nitro to continue talking. But just as Nitro is getting ready to give him the name of the person that gave him these pills, we see that Wolverine is attacked by Janus. Now, this is really kind of an interesting fight because it actually takes Wolverine off guard for the most part. Not in the sense that Janus appears out of nowhere, but because of the fact that Janus is for the most part able to go toe-to-toe with Wolverine and bare-knuckle fist fighting. Now, again, the reason why I say this is kind of takes Wolverine by surprise is because very rarely do we see individuals who are able to take Wolverine on hand-to-hand in physical combat. One, because Wolverine is a prodigious fighter. He has all sorts of skills in hand-to-hand combat. But two, Wolverine has a healing factor and he has adamantium. And so his physical blows are absolutely crushing. And so most individuals would be able to go toe-to-toe with him for a few minutes, but they would be worn down extremely fast by Wolverine. From there, we continue to see the fight go on. We continue to see see Wolverine and Janus, again, go bear to bear and really kind of fight one another, but now they've really kind of progressed to using weapons, where Wolverine is using his adamantium claws, and Janus is using some kind of knife-like weapon that we've never really seen before. But then we see that this unknown woman calls off the fight between the two individuals, and that the unknown male, has successfully subdued Nitro. Now from here, we see that this woman really kind of begins to bargain with Wolverine and tells Wolverine that if he leaves, if he allows them to take Nitro with them, that they will go in peace and they will have no more quarrel with Wolverine. But Wolverine's not willing to accept these terms because, again, Wolverine wants to ensure that all guilty parties regarding Stamford, Connecticut are held responsible for their actions. And so we see that Janus re-engages Wolverine and the two of them begin to fight once more. But then we see that Nitro attempts to overpower this individual that we know as Paul, who is really kind of attempting to keep him subdued. And that that Nitro begins the process of self-destructing, but that Paul shoots him with something that really kind of disables his ability to use his powers. From there, we again switch back and forth between Wolverine and Janus as the two of them are really kind of fighting their respective enemies. We see Janus fighting Wolverine, we see Paul and the unknown woman attempting to subdue Nitro, and then we really kind of switch to some unknown location. And we see that two individuals, presumably working in an office building, are really kind of talking about severing ties or ensuring that the ties are severed between themselves and Nitro so that no one can really kind of trace the connection between the two of them. At this point, we switch back to Wolverine and Janus, and we really kind of get the portion of the comic that deals most with dialogue. That really kind of deals more with giving us information. And this is actually done in a very interesting way and gives us some really cool information. Initially, the woman that is talking with Wolverine asks Wolverine why it is that he's willing to give his life for someone like Nitro. And Wolverine states that he's not giving his life for Nitro, that he's not going to die for Nitro, but that Nitro basically has information that he needs. In addition, we see that Nitro is able to kind of sneak up on Wolverine and really kind of able to not necessarily overpower him, but really kind of take him by surprise. And of course, we see that Wolverine is in turn able to overpower Nitro. And then we kind of again switch back to the discussion portion, kind of switch back to the dialogue where we see that Janus attempts to attack Wolverine, but Wolverine kind of tells him not to. That says that this fight really kind of needs to stop and everybody needs to calm down. And then he starts talking with Nitro and he asks Janus, how is it that you're able to go toe-to-toe with me? How is it that you have this much strength? Is it because of a strength boost of some kind, mutant growth hormone, radiation, the super soldier formula? And we see that Janus says that it's their birthright, that they are born with this inherent ability, that they don't come from Stamford, Connecticut, they don't come from anywhere in the world. And then we see Janus really kind of put on an oxygen mask and inject himself in the neck and then take on the full appearance of an Atlantean. Now from this point, Wolverine really kind of has an idea of what's going on now, that these Atlanteans are there to, procure Nitro for the purpose of Nitro standing trial, or at the very least facing justice for his actions in Stamford, Connecticut, because his actions resulted in the death of Namorita. We learned that Paul and the unknown woman are members of the Atlantean royal family, and they've been sent here to acquire Nitro. Now, Wolverine asks who it was that sent them here, and then we switch to Namor the Submariner, who says, "Do you even have to ask that question?" So the Fantastic Four issue number 539 is a very important comic for several reasons. The first is that it really kind of gives us the end result of the decision that Ben Grimm makes. Which side is he going to choose? Is he going to choose Captain America's side? Is he going to choose Iron Man's side? Because this is an aspect of Ben Grimm that has really kind of been interesting throughout the Civil War event. He's really remained neutral, and so his neutral stance will really kind of come to a head in this particular comic. In addition, we're really kind of introduced to the desires, the kind of goals of Thinker and Puppet Master. And if you recall the discussion that we had previously had on the Fantastic Four in Fantastic Four issue number 538, we had talked about how the Thinker and Puppet Master were villains that were really just kind of using the current Civil War to their advantage to really kind of implement their own schemes. At the time, we didn't really know what that meant, but in this comic, we will find out. And what we see as this comic begins to unfold is that Captain America and his team are really kind of going over and sort of finalizing plans to intercept Iron Man's convoy as he is transporting the captured superheroes that we saw in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 534 to an unenclosed destination, a non-disclosed destination. And so this is really kind of interesting here because this comic book takes place before the events of Amazing Spider-Man issue number 534 and then really kind of catches up and takes place alongside the events of Amazing Spider-Man issue number 534. And what we see as Captain America and his team are really kind of sort of, laying plans out as they're really kind of trying to get things finalized, is that three members of the Yancey Street gang appear to them and tell them they know exactly the route that Iron Man is going to take. They know exactly where it is that he's going to go. And so where previously Captain America was concerned that their lack of knowledge of which route he was going to take was really going to kind of stretch their numbers thin in the sense that they would have to cover all the routes, now they have a pretty solid idea of which way to go. Now the information is kind of questioned by Captain America, that is to say he's really kind of curious where it came from, and the Yancey Street gang won't necessarily tell him where it came from. They'll just simply tell him that it is a very reliable source who is beyond contestation. Now from here we switch to the Thinker and Puppet Master. Now the Thinker and Puppet Master are really interesting here because the Thinker and Puppet Master are longtime enemies of the Fantastic Four, and while neither possesses any superpower per se, they are both really kind of very respectable in their own right. Thinker is a genius level intellect. He really is able to predict the most logical or the most likely outcomes in any given scenario using mathematics to his advantage. In addition, he is a very talented, technological genius and really kind of has a level of intelligence that is on par with Dr. Doom and Reed Richards and individuals like that. In addition, Puppet Master, again, doesn't necessarily have any powers, but what he does have is the ability to manipulate this kind of magical clay. And whenever he makes clay models of particular individuals, he is able to manipulate the actions of those individuals. And what we see is that they have gone through the very tedious process of making a very large-scale model of this area, this section of Manhattan, where they expect to have their plans really kind of unfold. And what we see is that they've made some clay model decoys of virtually everyone who is going to be involved, a multitude of individuals, including the Yancey Street gang who are going to be protesting, a multitude of individuals, including the superheroes. Now, under normal circumstances, Puppet Master is not able to manipulate the physical actions of superheroes, but due to a kind of headset that the Thinker has created for him, he is now going to be able to manipulate those individuals. In addition, what we learn is that the information that was revealed to Captain America on behalf of the Yancey Street gang was actually given to the Yancey Street gang by Puppet Master and by the Thinker, so that they could really kind of control all variables in this equation. From there, we switch to Ben Grimm, and Ben Grimm's really just kind of having lunch. He's just really kind of enjoying himself, and there's some witty banter back and forth between himself and the deli maker or the deli owner, but the deli owner goes as far as to inform him that the Yancey Street gang intends to protest Iron Man's convoy and actually intends to create as much of a disturbance as they can. And this really kind of concerns Ben Grimm because he feels like the Yancey Street gang may very well have been bitten off more than they can chew. They're really kind of over their heads in this one. And so from here we switch to to Spider-Man, and we really kind of pick up with the events of Spider-Man issue number 534, but this time we get more of a perspective. And where we saw that Spider-Man's spider senses began to go off, that he really kind of detected Captain America and his team, we see that that the group is actually ambushed by the Yancey Street gang and a multitude of protesters. And Iron Man makes the decision to go ahead and detour away from these protesters and to head down Route C, which takes them to Yancey Street. And the team, the entire convoy, is really not necessarily ambushed by individuals on this street. They're really just kind of verbally abused. They have things thrown at them and so on and so forth. And then we see Puppet Master and Thinker really kind of begin to get into the fray. And what we see is that Puppet Master manipulates one of the jet fighter pilots into firing missiles. Now the missiles for the most part are really kind of, I guess, intercepted by Iron Man's team, but then we see that Ben Grimm arrives in the midst of all this chaos and watches everything happen at the same time that Captain America's group appears. While all this is going on, we see that Mouse of the Yancey Street gang, who is under the influence of Puppet Master, goes to a trash can to pick up a bomb that had previously been laid there, and under the influence of Puppet Master, his intention is to lay the bomb out and kill as many people as possible, as many of the superheroes as possible, which will fulfill the goals of the Thinker and Puppet Master, so that they will have as many superheroes out of the way so that they can really kind of begin their plans for conquest and so on and so forth. What we see is that Ben Grimm is able to stop the bomb from killing a large array of people by throwing one of the convoy trucks on top of it, and then realizes that Mouse is under control of Puppet Master. But then we also see that he's distraught to see that one of the members of the Yancey Street gang, a younger member of the gang, is killed in the explosion. From here, Ben Grimm really just kind of freaks out, and he goes absolutely chaotic on Iron Man and Captain America, not in the sense that he becomes physically violent, but in the sense that he just starts screaming at them that this war that they have caused, this civil war that they have started, has really kind of torn the superhero community in half. But not only that, it's cost the lives of people who under normal circumstances would never have been involved in this in the first place. And so he's really kind of asked by both Captain America and Iron Man to join their respective sides, and Ben Grimm declines both offers. He says he will not join either side. He actually goes as far as to say the hell with them and that he's leaving the country. He doesn't even know if he's ever going to be back again.